say your name.
Yeah.
Lydia Walker. Hey, good.
Okay, ready?
Yes,
Okay, first question up. What is your name?
Lydia Walker.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
How
you.
old are you?
66.
66. Okay, and how do you identify?
I'm a lesbian.
Okay, number 4. What is your experience with activist organizations, including the Razordykes?
Well, I'm a member of Spinsterhaven, and I served on the board here for 3 years, and I'm, proud and honored to have been able to do that work. But I was also a member of the first LGBT group of any kind in Northwest Arkansas, which was a group called the Razordykes.
And when was that founded?
1976.
That sounds awesome.
So what happened was, I had been to school down in Texas, and I moved back up here and was just kind of fumbling around with the only gay bar in town was a place called George's, and I was trying to find community, and somehow I found out, my girlfriend and I found out about a place, a women's group that was meeting, and they were meeting off campus, and I remember us going over to this person's old 2-story house over here in the historic district. And I just remember sitting there kind of in wide-eyed wonder. There were probably, 25, 30 lesbian women there. And so I went a couple of times to this, and then at one of the meetings, they discussed this issue that was going on at the University of Arkansas. The University of Arkansas had been sued. Their athletic departments had been sued for not following Title IX and offering women's sports. And so, and also some of the individual departments were under scrutiny and trouble. One of them being the psychology department, because over and over and over, they took 8 grad students a year, and they were almost always all male. I mean, maybe one female, maybe a wild year or 2. Well, some of the departments were in trouble, and the university itself was in trouble and under scrutiny for discrimination against women. So the university reached out to this women's group and asked this women's group if it would be happy to use a ranch-style house that was on university property, and like here is Razorback Stadium, and here's a road called Razorback, and the soon-to-be Women's Center was right there. It was just right there, and so the group said, I don't know, but okay. So there we were. Now, instead of like wandering to people, we had a space. And the Women's Center, which I realized later was the same as what was happening in these houses, consisted of different collectives. It consisted of a newspaper called Hard Labor, and it consisted of a women's chorus, and it consisted of a women's library, and which some of the books in here in the Spinsterhaven library are from the original women's library, some of which were donated by the Razordykes that I'll get to in just a second. And it had the Mari Spahar Health Collective that was named after a woman who had died from the birth control that was the coil they put in, and she got an infection and died from it. And so there was a room in the back where literally, just like you've seen in Dykes to Watch Out For, the comics, women would get in a circle, like on the floor with pillows, and handheld mirrors and look at themselves. So we'd have potlucks, and at potlucks someone might make a big thing of homemade peach ice cream, and it would go around the room with like easily 25 women with a long-handled spoon, and no one would take more than one bite. We'd just keep passing it around. Whoops, made it. Passing it around. But anyway.
Sounds very amazing.
It was a lot of fun. Okay. Now, during that time, I did get my first sense of women on the land and OLA, and then some of the land collective things that sprung up out there was at one of these potlucks when some women from out on the land came in to one of the potlucks. They brought tomatoes. They were hungry. They were glad to be at the potluck. So anyway, some of us young lesbians, we saw all this action happening. All this activism and action, and we were just the babies. We were like 18, 19 years old, and these women were grown-ups. I mean, they were like 25, 26, which seems dear now, but we said, I know, and flash from the past, said, let's have a lesbian consciousness raising group. Because back then, everybody liked the movie The Furies, which I'm sure y'all have seen and are familiar with. The consciousness raising group, that was where it was at. So, we had a consciousness raising group, and there were, I think, 6 to 8 of us there. I think there were at least 6 of us, and maybe 8. And anyway, we had this consciousness raising group. And we met the first time, and what we did is we went around the room and we told about our coming out story. And so we did that. And we met a second time, and we kind of did a go round, and it was kind of like, well, do you have anything to add from the first time we met and you had your coming out story? And people would be like, well, I don't think I mentioned how bad it was. And then it'd be the next person. It just kind of went around the room. And so the third time we met, and if Beverly said it was the second time or the end of the second time, I'll go with that. But it was either the end of the second time we met or the beginning of the third time we said, this is a consciousness raising group for lesbians, but we have run out of things to share. Which now y'all know, how weak is that for lesbian feminists to say we don't have a thing to say? Well, we didn't have anything to say. And someone had the bright idea of each of the collectives, by the way, even though we were under the Women's Center, each collective would submit a budget for things they wanted to do, like hard labor, wanted ink and newspaper print, to print the paper, and literally Mari Spahar Collective wanted speculums and mirrors and everything that went with that, flashlights and everything that went with that. And so someone said, but it had to be approved by the Arkansas Student Senate. And so I said, I tell you what, let's do. Let's write, one of us said it, let's write a letter to the editor. First, let's write a letter to the Senate asking for money under the Women's Center. They will deny it. And then we can write a letter of complaint and consciousness raising to the student newspaper. And I'm so sorry I can't, I'm blanking on the name of this, but y'all can look it up. It was like, this isn't it, but it was like Razorback Times or something, High on the Hog or something.
When would you think it happened?
This was 1976.
1976?
Yeah, right after, in the fall. I mean, in the spring, early spring, yeah. But the newspaper was there. I'll look it up before we're done on Google.
Sounds awesome.
Okay, so anyway, and I'm sorry, I had a bag of show and tell to bring that had like my Razordyke t-shirt and
So sad.
and some of these newspapers, but if it turns up, I'll take pictures and
We would be glad to see it. It all sounds.
or video and video it over. Oh, and anyway.
Yeah.
All right, so the idea was we'd ask the Senate for money, they'd turn us down, and then we'd write a consciousness-raising letter about how oppressed gay and lesbian people were to the student newspaper. This was the whole plan. So we wrote out a budget real quick. I believe it was for $10,000. We submitted it to the Student Senate. We submitted it to the Women's Center, the other women in the Women's Center. Of course, is this what the youth wants? Done. The Student Senate, oh, did you find something? Here, bring. Here. Oh, thank you. This just fell. Oh, yeah, here's some of us. Here's members of the Razordykes. Down when we were having a
Wow.
overnight down at Devil's Den. There's some of us.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and that's,
Get that on camera?
yeah. And that's, yeah, get it up there. Yeah, that the broom person is Dora the Dyke.
Dora the Dyke.
Yeah, and she did all kinds of stunts before the weekend was over. But does it mention the newspaper in there, Mike? I don't think it does. Oh well. Anyway.
Glad we have some photos at least.
Yes. So anyway.
Here, I'll pass
Yeah, and that's me. That's me to the right of the woman in the cap. That's me. Here. I'm sorry. They want it over here too.
Wow. You look tough.
Yeah. Well, I thought I was, but look what a little baby I was. Okay. So. We write this budget for $10,000 within the Women's Center budget, and they submit it to the Student Senate, and I'll be damned, y'all, they gave us $300.
Out of 10,000?
Yeah. But the important thing is, they gave us $300. Now, we had said that we were going to buy books for the Women's Library, and we were going to do speaking engagements and needed money, and we were going to have like spring cotillions and fall mixers. And back in the day, everything was mimeographed on these machines. You didn't even really Xerox things. There were other ways of making copies, but this was for copying, so that we could put up things around campus. Okay, so we bought books for the Women's Center Library at that time, or Women's Library, and we made many copies, and we had at least a spring cotillion, and I think we had a fall mixer too. And we put out to university classes that we would come and speak in their classes. And myself and some other people, we went to psych classes and women's study classes and social work classes, a counseling class, I remember, and we would speak. We would get up there and just speak about being lesbian, and only one time did a man come with us, and it didn't work well for him to be there. He was a mess. And so after that, it was just lesbians and speaking. And I have to tell you, it was pretty rough. It was rough, if you can imagine. This was a dangerous time to be gay. And very difficult. And we go in the class, and usually first thing you were met head on with hostility. How do you have sex? People asking the most, what they thought were difficult questions that they could think of. And you know, and we usually did the classes by ourselves. Occasionally there were two of us, but often it was just us. And one of my favorite things was to be in the class. And I would go through the, classes, and then they would say, the teacher would get up one day and go, and today we're having a speaker from the Razordykes. And then I would just stand up and go to the front of the room, which always just, they all but shrieked. Okay, let me go backwards a little bit. When we applied for these funds through the Women's Center to the Student Senate, we said, well, we can't call ourselves the Lesbian Consciousness Raising Group anymore, because this is beyond that. And one of the women, who's very clever, very funny, very witty, said, I don't know if Beverly named her first name was Rose, and she said, why don't we call ourselves the Razordykes? And as you know, the University of Arkansas are the Razorbacks, and so now we were the Razordykes. So the upshot is, we did speaking engagements, we bought books. The third year we put in to buy a film. The film we bought was called The Word Is Out. And back in the day, when you bought The Word Is Out, it didn't come in a little DVD from Amazon. It came in a big movie projector reel, like if you went down to the movies and saw one, that's how it came. It came in 2 reels. And so we would have them set up the movie projector, show this in the classes. All right. Well, everything is just going great guns. And I think they've increased our funding from $300 to like $500 because we're so successful as the Razordykes. Well, about this time, we are having a spring cotillion. And there had been some groups who had risen up on campus. One was called Flag, America, and God. Freedom something, anyway, it spelt flag. And it was America and God. And then the other one, I can't remember its name either. I'm sorry, but it was, maybe Beverly could remember. It was also a right-wing organization. Well, they came one day and just plopped themselves down in the middle of one of our Razordyke meetings. And they said, this is open to all women, isn't it? And we were like, yes. And so so they said, well, we're here for the meeting. Well, we just said stupid things and talked about nothing aimlessly, and they left. But these women, of course, wanted to disrupt our activities. And the upshot is somebody got a hold of one of our spring cotillion flyers and sent it to the wife of one of the state legislators of Arkansas, not of the Senate, student Senate, but of the state of Arkansas. He went into a fury, and we actually obtained tapes, which were cassette tapes, of him going off on about University of Arkansas funds being spent on perverted activities, which was us. And I got hauled into, a couple of us at different times, but I specifically remember being hauled into the president of the University of Arkansas's office, not his assistant, the president that time, because he thought he could reason with us, because the dean under him had failed to reason with us. And I remember him saying, couldn't you at least change the name from Razordyke to something less offensive? He said, Razordyke sounds so violent. And I remember laughing and saying, well, we thought it was rather, patriotic to the Razorbacks. Oh, it's like y'all but did this when I said Razordykes and Razorbacks. Well, they were after us with a fury. And there were meetings after meetings. And at one point, the student Senate, of course, defunded us. And one of the excuses they made about defunding us is that there were almost none of us. Do you think, how long ago was this? In the 70s, what? 35 years or something? What is that?
30 is the 90s now.
Yeah, I was born in 82 and I'm 40,
So I think maybe 50 years
50,
ago.
yeah.
So this is like 50 years ago. Well,
It's preposterous that they would say Razordykes is violent, but then they switch over to Razorbacks, and then go, yes, that's
yeah. Well, they accused us of not having very many members. Well, the truth of the matter was we didn't have hardly any members, especially functioning members, because this took a lot of work. Doing all this took a lot of work, and we were students, and so the Senate was going to hear this, and what we told them is that in addition to students, you were allowed to have non-student members. And so we told them we had many non-student members. And so the night that this was heard in front of the student Senate, okay, I'm there with like 2 or 3 other people, all of us who've been on the front line, being harassed, followed on campus, things that were difficult. And all of a sudden, the student Senate met in one of those big classrooms where you came in the back doors and then it went down, like a Greek theater, it went down. All of it, and there were probably 8 doubled sets of doors in the back. And these doors started opening. And it was all these women from OLA, from the Land Collective. And I mean, it was Radical Susie back during this time. It was, everybody's head was shaved. They all had tails. One woman had the name of a planet, and then it was like the name of this planet, Beard Woman, that was her name. And they drove purple buses, and they were some radical looking lesbians from the 70s. And then just some regular, natural, back to the earth women. But anyway, these women, some who had come in a big bus, just came in and they started going around the top of the Senate auditorium. And they went across almost the whole back. There had to have been 40 of them. And they all said, we're members of the Razordykes. So, you may wonder, how does this conclude? Well, one of the things, and this is difficult, because it's a reminder of what are the ways that men silence women. Not just gay women or lesbian women, but straight women. What are the ways that they silence us? And one of the ways they silence us is through threat and through violence. So there was a sexual assault that happened to a woman down near campus and around Dixon Street, where there were some apartments right there. And there was, when you're coming down Dixon Street and you turn at the top, like where the fraternity row is, and you turn this way, and you go back by the UARC Theater, which on the south side used to be 42nd Street, the gay bar. Well, when you start down there, the very first street you come to that goes to your left, there's a brick wall there, and someone had written on it, and I wish Beverly was here to remind us, but they had wrote something like, it wasn't death to fags, it was like death to dykes, because they had feminized the threat. And we thought, well. And then not long after that, a woman who was a lesbian, this person who had done this previous sexual assault had broken into the home, something like this. Okay, stop.
So we're good. Just stop. Yeah, so sorry.
Okay. Anyway, someone had broken into a lesbian's home in this area, and they had left a knife. They'd picked a knife up that was on her table, a cutting knife, and they'd left it in her wooden table. And myself and one of the other women, there were only like 3 or 4 of us that were doing this Razordyke stuff for real. And myself and one of the other women, the other woman came to me and she said, I'm really sure I'm being followed around campus. Now at the same time, I'm in graduate school now, and we were getting, on Wednesdays we had some lesbian dancing down at a club called RD's. And every time we had one of these women's night, the straight women as well as lesbian women from the psych department would go to these. And we were, one of us in the psych department, which I was in grad school in the psych department, we'd get a obscene phone call. And then this other person, who is a Razordyke, was being followed. That was 50% of us, y'all. So we talked about it, and we decided, and they had confiscated the film, The Word Is Out, which I assume was destroyed, but they show it every year on Turner Classic Movies. And I'm sure there are other places you can find it. But anyway, we decided time to be done. But what I wanted to bring to you was I had made, you could get these t-shirts, and it said, in a curvature, it said Arkansas, and then it would have a razorback. So I got one that said Arkansas Razorback Razordykes. Wore it all over fucking campus for 3 years to all my classes.
We could see it. It sounds.
And if I can, and I'll tell you one thing that's funny about that. At the time, and it says right in there, it says large. It would not fit over this breast. It is tiny. If I held it up, it's the size of a piece of typing paper. How that worked, I don't know. Now, I just wanted to talk about the Razordykes. I knew about Spinsterhaven when they started building, bought land and started building out there, and it was for disabled women. And honestly, I never participated because first off, I was young, wasn't ready to prepare for this time in my life, which is ironic now. And second, I saw what they figured out. It was just too far out in the woods for people that were old and disabled to live. I mean, it was probably back then, it was easily 35, 40 minutes. Now it's 20 minutes from town, but back then, not so much. And I just didn't see it as very workable. And then the next time I knew about it was in my swim club, a woman named Arden Kate swam with me. And she told me about Elder Tree House, and which of course Elder Tree is a project of Spinsterhaven, and I came to a First Fun Friday potluck, and it was amazing to walk in the room, the door, and see all these people I knew from my past and from the history of the women's movement here. It was lovely. And so that's really, and then everything else I know about Spinsterhaven is modern.
Michelle, do you want to speak to the separatist question? But I think she answered, unless there's anything she didn't answer.
No. It's just, how long have you been involved with Elder Tree now?
About 7, 8 years, I guess.
I'm so glad there's a community. Okay, so what was your motivation to joining Elder Tree? Is it because you had a strong friendship community already?
Oh, right. Well, I was just coming to events, and our house manager at the time, and I knew a lot about, I had worked at the Battered Women's Shelter for 15 years, and then for another 12 had done trainings on domestic violence and rape and child abuse. And I had knew a lot about nonprofits, raising money for nonprofits, grant writing. And so I was kind of trying to lend a hand to the house manager at the time, Anna Linville, who was wanting to do some outreach and things like this. And so we became friends, and she pursued me and begged me until I joined the board.
Sounds great. Okay, so next question. What does separatism mean to you, and do you consider yourself a separatist?
Lesbian separatism. Lesbian separatists, there's a gamut, there's a range. of what that means, but in general, it would be women who want community that is women only, and in some ways, and there's all kinds of a range there. For example, at Ola, there was never a time that male children weren't welcome on the land. There were rumors that there was, but there was not. And Nancy Vaughn can speak to that. And and I've seen places like where boys to a certain age can live on the land, usually until young adulthood. Times when men can be present on the land. It's more people knowing, I think, when they're coming. And so there's a range even there. So, am I a separatist? Well, when I was younger, I went through a period of time where I dreamed of being a separatist, but I never was. I came and started my work in domestic violence, and I stayed in town where I could do that, yeah. And I don't think, as far as living on the land as a separatist, you don't have to live on the land to be a separatist, but many people do. And as I got older, I realized that I wanted cable and central heat and air every day of my life, and running water, yeah, so.
Okay. What was the political or social climate in Arkansas towards women or members of the LGBTQ+ community around the time Elder Tree was created, or whenever you...
Oh, you're going all the way back to when I'm talking about, oh, piss.
I know there's...
It was illegal. It was a felony. Yeah, it was a felony in Arkansas for lesbians and gay men to have sex way, way, way up until just recently. Yeah, and I remember, and God, I think it was like around 2000 or so, where it became it wasn't the constant law. And saying, oh my God, I can't believe it. It's not a felony now to have sex. But I remember a long, long time when I worked at the shelter, a standard joke that I had was that I wanted to commit as many felonies during a week as I could. And so, yeah. And so, I don't mean a misdemeanor. I mean it was a felony. And
are we talking something like sodomy laws?
Yeah. Yeah. Only sodomy laws included any kind of sexual contact between women or between men, yeah. So it was not a friendly place, you know. Fayetteville, you know, had always one gay bar. Eureka Springs, even now, doesn't have an exclusive gay bar. They have bars that are friendly to gay people. Little Rock used to have a gay men's bar and a women's bar. The Silver Dollar was the women's bar, yeah. And so now I've forgotten the question, because did that answer your question,
yes,
maybe?
Yes.
Okay.
Was there any other hostilities from the community, like from not just from the students, as you said before? But...
Well, I remember one night, my partner and I, Rose, walking down Dixon Street going into George's, which was a straight bar that was friendly to gay people prior, and it was called the Gay Bar, but Mary would have just died if she'd heard that. But anyway, we were walking to go in there, and my girlfriend at the time had a really cool woven fedora on. And we were walking down the street, and actually it wasn't really bad. We were just catcalled. And something, you know, so if that's not gay, I don't know what is. It was more friendly. a cat call. But when 42nd Street opened, which was right, I've already described it, where the U-Ark is on the south side, there was a man and a woman who left 42nd Street and were walking to their car down Dixon. Well, it just so happened that this was a straight couple. But the villains didn't know this, and they attacked them and broke the man's fingers on both hands. And and I remember that my roommate, John Wilkins, was assaulted again on Dixon Street at one of the restaurants he was coming out of, and someone threw a tomato, which is actually a very hard object, and hit him right on the throat and knocked him down. He was gay looking. He was certainly a handsome fey person. So it was, and then I just told you about the sexual assault stuff, and yeah. So.
Thank you for telling us this.
Yeah.
Okay, next question. What is the most influential memory or experience that you had in your activism that you would like to share with us?
You know, that's just a big question, and I think the biggest, the most stunning memory for me is we were having a gay pride march, and some jerk from down in Fort Smith called the Fort Smith television station and told them that if we had this gay pride march up here, which it was probably our 6th or 7th, so if you have it, we've got rifles and we're going to shoot some people. Now, this was before all these shootings happened.
What year was this?
This would have been 1986, maybe. And said we're going to be shooting people. Well, prior to this, because I had this degree in psych, I had interns from like social work and counseling and psychology. Oh, everybody was so excited. Teachers were given extra credit if you went to the Gay Pride March. And yeah, you could get like 5 points, 15 points if you came to the Gay Pride March. And so, excuse me, be sure to videotape this.
Oh, we are.
Yeah.
We will not put that in the documentary, you promise.
Without hesitation. Well, you could make me weepy at some point, but anyway. All these interns, well, 2 or 3 of them were going to come and get extra credit. They were very happy about it. And not for me, because it was an internship, but for some of their classes. And then this call came in. Oh, well, this changed who was participating. Because suddenly, instead of people who weren't gay coming for extra credit, it was kind of the lesbians who worked at the Women's Center saying, we're going to the Gay Pride March. Hope to see ya. So we show up for the Gay Pride March. And now, remember in '86, again, this is before they have all these shootings that are so common. And we're standing around waiting to march. And all of a sudden, 8 couples, heterosexual couples from like the food co-op couples. One of them was a woman named Pat Schramm and her husband Joel. They come up with their children. They all have little kids with them. And they walk up, and there were about I would say maybe 25 of us for the march. Unlike what y'all saw the other day. They're like maybe, this is back the old days. There were maybe like 25 of us. And, oh, and by the way, a busload, and I mean a church long bus, had come up from Fort Smith with counter-protesters. But they had them down at the park waiting for us. We went from the square down to a park that's just below Dixon. So anyway, about 25 of us. And to our amazement, these couples, two people, and their children, got on the outside of our line of marchers. They picked their children up and put them on their shoulders. Yeah. Because they thought these fiends would not shoot their children. And they used their children as a shield for us. Well, thank fucking God. Who knows what these people, whether they'd ever planned to do this or what. But what courage. And I mean, what courage. What community. What putting what you believe in. You know, I mean, I just don't know what to say about it to this day. So of all the things that happened to me in activism, as amazing as when all the women marched into the Senate to support the Razordykes, as amazing as so many things have been, that is it. That's it. Just amazing.
Thank you for
So-
sharing all of